Well, hello, all of my students. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Jay. On today's English lesson, I have an English from the news lesson. I am going to help improve your vocabulary and comprehension as I read through a news article about Venezuela today. And I know we're going to have a lot of learning and laughter. So let's get ready to dive into today's lesson. According to ABC News, Rodriguez becomes Venezuela's interim president. Interim. We'll learn what that means in just a moment. After Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro was captured by U.S. forces during a military operation, Venezuela now has a new interim leader. Okay, so captured. Someone that is captured is taken and held by another party. One of my subscribers left me a comment on yesterday and said, imagine waking up and finding out that your country's president has been kidnapped. And so he was captured. All right. Notice during a military operation. Military. So when we talk about a military operation, of course, it has to do with that which is related to a country's armed forces. Okay, military. Delcy Rodriguez, and I hope I'm pronouncing her first name correctly, who was Venezuela's vice president. So a vice president, as some of us may know, is the person that is second in command behind the president, became the interim president under a ruling for the country's or from the country's Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court is, especially here in the United States, is the highest court in the land. Okay, Supreme Court. Now, here's our key word, interim. Interim. So an interim coach or an interim president or an interim principal at a school is someone that is temporary. They are not the permanent official or choice. Okay, so sometimes people that watch sports, when a coach gets fired, they have an interim coach. So someone that they have not hired yet officially, they are a stand-in until the new coach is hired. So Rodriguez is the stand-in president, interim. Rodriguez has been one of, Maduro's closest political allies. Okay, allies. So an ally, as I discussed on yesterday's English lesson, by the way, I have a playlist of other English lessons that you can watch, whether it's in the news or some of my read and repeat stories down in the description of today's teaching. An ally is someone who supports you, a friend, someone on your side. Okay, it could be an individual person or it could be a group of people. Okay, an ally. Now, the opposite of an ally is a foe or an enemy or an adversary. These are opposites or words that are an antithesis to an ally. Opposite antithesis. They mean the same thing. So if I am your ally, I am your friend. If I am your adversary, I am your foe or your enemy. Okay, let's continue. We're moving right along. She previously oversaw much of the country's oil-dependent economy and its intelligence services. Okay, she previously oversaw. So when someone oversees, they take a supervisory role. It's someone who supervises or provides an overlook of a task, an assignment, or a group of people. So she oversaw much of the company's oil-dependent economy. So when they describe the economy as being oil-dependent, it simply means that the revenue from oil funds a lot of the operations in the country. Oil dependent. A country could be gas dependent. A country could be gold dependent. Okay. Some people are God dependent. So whatever the country is dependent on most, they are dependent on it. And its intelligence service. So when it describes an intelligence service, it's talking about how the company gathers information. Here in the United States, it would be Homeland Security. It would be Central Intelligence Agency or the CIA, or in some cases, the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Okay. And of course, they have black ops groups that are not on paper. Things and people we will never, ever know about. They gather domestic information or information within the country or international information from other countries. Okay, let's continue. The Supreme Court said she should take over temporarily, just for a moment, just for a season. So some people look for a temporary fix, we say. Instead of looking for a long-term solution, people look for a temporary solution or fix. So if my phone broke and I couldn't tell time from my phone, I may start wearing my watch as a temporary fix until I got my phone repaired. All right. The Supreme Court said she should take over temporarily to keep the government working while Maduro is abroad and facing charges in the United States. While he is abroad. Okay, so when we use the word abroad, it means that you're describing someone who is in another country. Some students study abroad. Now, broad can also describe someone like a female as a slang term. It's an old slang term. Sometimes you hear people say a chick, okay, a girl describing a female, or it can be a slang term like abroad. Oh man, I'm out here. There's too many men out here. Where are the broads? So a female, all right? But here, when they use the term abroad, it has to do with being in another country. And many of us know that the administration here in the United States. Trump has brought him and his wife over here facing charges. Ooh, I wonder how this is going to turn out. Even though Rodriguez stepped into the presidency quickly, some people question her legitimacy. Now, when you step into something, that means she came into it. Now, I can step into my punch. I can step into the hallway. But when she stepped into the presidency, it means she entered. And so now we see that people are questioning her legitimacy. Now, that is a great word. Something or someone that is legitimate is someone that is being accepted as lawful or fair. Okay? Legitimate, official, certified, reputable, legitimate. So you may say, this watch is a knockoff. It's not real. It's not legitimate. It looks like an Apple Watch, but it's not an Apple Watch. It's not a legitimate Apple product. Okay? So legitimate or legitimacy. Now, there's a word that we use in English to describe someone that is not a part of a family, and it sounds just like legitimate, illegitimate. So an illegitimate child, a child that may be what we call a stepchild. So not naturally my child, but another man's child, and I'm taking care of it. Or you had an illegitimate child. You had a child when you weren't married. Okay? But legitimate here in the context of this sentence has to do with someone that is acceptable, lawful, or fair. Okay? Let's continue. Critics say that the way she came to power does not follow normal democratic procedures, and they worry this could deepen divisions in Venezuelan society. So procedures, the way of doing things. Procedures, how things are normally done, whether it be in an official manner or a traditional manner. Okay, so when you get a new job, they have certain procedures you must follow, certain rules that you must follow on the job. If you are a parent, you have rules and procedures in your home. So you may tell your child you cannot go outside to play until you clean your room and do your homework. Those are the procedures of the family. Or in some households, they may have religious procedures. Look, you must learn certain tenets, or you must pray before we do certain activities. Those are procedures, rules, guidelines that must be followed. So evidently, there are some people that are upset at how she came into power. But that's just how it goes. If you're the next person up, then it's your turn. So she was the vice president. The president is no longer in office. It's her turn. That's why they are called critics. Notice critics say. Critics. So a critic is someone who always has a problem with something. They criticize. Okay? So if you say, Jay, that's a nice shirt, but then someone else say, that's an ugly shirt, I could say, why are you such a critic? All right? Rodriguez said she is willing to collaborate with the United States government and work toward peaceful relations, though it is unclear what that will mean in practice. Okay, she is willing to collaborate, work together, unify, as we would say, work hand in hand. She is willing to collaborate. So if I were to call you and ask you to be on one of my English lessons, that is called a collaboration. We are working together. So she is willing to cooperate with the United States, work together. And oftentimes, unity, I believe, is a great thing. I believe that two is better than one. I believe that good and pleasant things happen when we dwell together in unity. So hopefully they can work together and solve some problems. Now, notice what it says, that it is unclear what that will mean in practice. What that will mean in practice. In other words, they're saying they don't know how this is actually going to happen. Now, if you practice collaborating with the United States, there are some people that are saying, I don't know how this is going to work out. Okay? Some U.S. officials have responded cautiously. So when you respond to someone, you give feedback. So if I ask a question, you will respond with an answer. So if a police officer says, let the window down, you respond by letting the window down. Cautiously, okay? Being aware of any danger. When you are cautious, you are being very discreet. You're being careful. So you might say, I knew there was a dog in the backyard, so I cautiously walked by the house. Okay? I didn't want the dog to be alerted or alarmed and chase me. That happened to me before. Some U.S. officials responded cautiously, saying they are watching the situation closely. The Constitution requires Venezuela to hold national elections within a set period. And many people expect a vote to be scheduled soon. Oh, this sentence contains a number of great terms. The Constitution, okay, here's one, Constitution. So when we talk about the Constitution, it has to do with the main set of laws that guide a country. The main set of laws that guide a country. And each country may have different constitutional laws, but those laws guide that country. So here in the United States, we have a constitution, and it has a number of rights that are for the citizens, okay? A constitution. And it requires them to hold national elections. Of course, when we talk about something being national, it's related to the entire country. Woo, this is going to be interesting to watch, because she may end up being the permanent leader. Because from some of the things that I have been seeing, a lot of people in Venezuela seem to be applauding her being in office. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. Now, an election are votes by the people to help choose leadership. Votes that are cast by citizens to choose current leaders in that country. Now, notice it is to happen within a set period, and many people expect a vote to be scheduled soon. Until then, Rodriguez will lead the government. Lead. She will guide. She will be the spokesman. She will be the decision maker. She will be the leader. And supported by the military and other leaders. She will be supported. She will be helped or backed by others. So remember, support is when someone helps you. This chair gives my back support. All right. Now you can support my channel by subscribing and turning on the notifications. Okay. You can support a person by doing things that will aid them. Meanwhile, many Venezuelans are living with uncertainty. Uncertainty, okay? So when someone is living in uncertainty, they're not knowing what will happen next. They are uncertain. Sometimes we say they are in the dark. They are unsure. They are people that may be blinded. They don't know. They're in the dark, we like to say. They're living in uncertainty and are unsure what will happen next. Some residents have expressed hope for political change, while others remain concerned about the future of their country. Okay, so someone left me a comment and asked, why don't I read the articles in a regular, natural flow? I normally do my stories that way, so let's read through the article without stopping. After Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro was captured by U.S. forces during a military operation, Venezuela now has a new interim leader, Delcy Rodriguez, who was Venezuela's vice president, became the interim president under a ruling from the country's Supreme Court. Rodriguez has been one of Maduro's closest political allies for years. She previously oversaw much of the country's oil-dependent economy and its intelligence services. The Supreme Court said she should take over temporarily to keep the government working while Maduro is abroad and facing charges in the United States. Even though Rodriguez stepped into the presidency quickly, some people question her legitimacy. Critics say that the way she came into power does not follow normal democratic procedures, and they worry this could deepen divisions in Venezuelan society. Rodriguez said she is willing to collaborate with the United States government and work toward peaceful relations, though it is unclear what that will mean in practice. Some U.S. officials have responded cautiously, saying that they are watching the situation closely. The Constitution requires Venezuela to hold national elections within a set period, and many people expect a vote to be scheduled soon. Until then, Rodriguez will lead the government supported by the military and other leaders. Meanwhile, many Venezuelans are living with uncertainty and are unsure what will happen next. Some residents have expressed hope for political change, while others remain concerned about the future of their country. Wow, it is a lot going on in Venezuela. Are you watching from Venezuela? What is the temperature of the city? What is the temperature of the community? In other words, how are people in the streets really feeling. Sometimes it can be difficult to judge the truth from watching mainstream media. So it's always good to hear from those that are actually there. So if you were there or have loved ones there, I would love for you to share your thoughts and observations on what's going on in your country. Well, that's going to do it for today's English lesson. I hope you have had a great time just as I have. If you have learned anything and you have a friend that is trying to improve their English, all I ask is that you share today's lesson with them. I know it will be a benefit. Now, I always tell my English listeners and learners, if you're still watching, to make sure you watch the lesson twice. Once with the subtitles on and once with the subtitles off. This is a sure way to help improve your English comprehension. I have a link in the description where if you have any questions, you can send them to me and I can address them on one of my next live sessions here on YouTube. And if you are not a subscriber, I invite you to subscribe and to turn those notification bells on. And as always, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And I hope you join me on my next English lesson. Salut, and I'll see you then.